Pittsburgh Steelers are favored by 7 points with a total at 41 for Sunday afternoon's 1:05 p.m. kickoff at Heinz Field in the NFL Playoffs Divisional Round against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some bettors are justifiably worried about laying the big number with Pittsburgh's 7-9 record against the spread this season. Blake Bortles threw for just 87 yards in Jacksonville's win over Buffalo, and a lot of key Steelers are going to play for the first time in 3 weeks. Pittsburgh takes the field with what amounts to a double bye for guys like Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell, and we've seen the bye do some crazy things. Pittsburgh has won at least one playoff game in each of the last 2 postseasons, while the Jaguars just won their first playoff game since 2007, which ironically came against the Steelers. Jacksonville won in the wildcard round, but they failed to cover in the 10-3 win over Buffalo, and it was not a great day, obviously, for offense, as the teams combined for just 593 yards. That win bumped the Jaguars to 11-6 on the season, but they fell to just 9-8 against the spread on the year. With consecutive unders in Week 17 and the wildcard weekend, the under is now 9-8 in the Jaguars games. The Jaguars will have a much different mindset this week against the Steelers. With LaShawn McCoy less than 100%, Jacksonville simply wanted to play as mistake-free as possible and grind out a win. That type of approach is unlikely to work against a Pittsburgh team with a lot more offensive firepower. Jacksonville got 75 net pass yards from Blake Bortles, who was 12 of 23 for 87 yards with 1 touchdown, no picks, and he was sacked twice. Bortles did get the job done with his legs, as he had 10 carries for 88 yards. Leonard Fournette, who really hasn't been a factor since he missed 3 games early in the season, only had 57 yards on 21 carries, including 16 on just one of those runs. D.D. Westbrook was the only wide receiver consistently able to get open, as Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns showed further signs of injury. The Jaguars scored a lot of points in the regular season and did manage 5.4 yards per play, but a lot of that had to do with turnovers and field position. The Jaguars were a potent red zone offense, though, as they ranked second in the NFL at 64%, so they did capitalize when they were given the chance. The Jacksonville defense didn't quite live up to its moniker, with only 2 sacks, but the Bills found very little room to pass or run. Even hobbled LaShawn McCoy at 119 yards on 25 touches and led the team in targets, receptions, and receiving yards, along with his 3.9 yards per carry on the ground. Bills quarterbacks were just 18 of 40 on the day. The strength of this Jacksonville team has been its defense. The Jaguars' defense forced 33 turnovers and held the opposition to just 4.6 yards per play. Only the Steelers coincidentally had more sacks than the Jaguars this season, who had 55. But the Jaguars were far and away the best team against the pass in terms of adjusted net yards per pass attempt against. Opponents only completed 56.8% of their passes and threw 21 interceptions. These 2 teams played in Week 5, and Jacksonville rolled Pittsburgh by forcing 5 turnovers in a 30-9 win. The Steelers finished off Cleveland's imperfect season to improve to 13-3 and 8-8 against the spread. Pittsburgh also enters this game at 10-5-1 to the under, as that Steelers defense has really driven the bus for most of the season. It has been a long season, so most of us have probably forgotten, but that 5-interception effort against the Jaguars was enough to get Ben Roethlisberger to talk about retirement. Big Ben threw for 312 yards in the loss, but he was clearly frustrated in the postgame. Since then, things have gone a lot better, and Ben has a 22-7 touchdown-interception ratio with over 8 yards per pass attempt. Antonio Brown, who was targeted 19 times in that first meeting, is allegedly at 100%. And will be ready to get back in there after missing the last 2 games of the season. It is impossible to overstate what Brown means to this offense, as he had 101 catches for 1,533 yards and 9 touchdowns. The emergence of Juju Smith-Schuster has been huge for the Steelers as well. Early in the year, the Steelers were struggling to produce chunk plays. They finished the regular season tied for 6th in yards per play and 6th in adjusted net yards per pass attempt. Over the last 5 games of the season, Le'Veon Bell had 4.55 yards per carry and 9.6 yards per reception, so Smith-Schuster's emergence created more openings and opportunities for others as well. The Steelers' defense didn't excel as much as it could have defensively because the team allowed some big point totals late in the year. The Packers had 28 in Week 12, the Ravens had 38 in Week 14, and the Browns had 24 in the finale as some guys sat out. Even with those games late in the year, Pittsburgh was still 7th in points allowed per game. Pittsburgh led the league in sacks with 56 and finished 8th in adjusted net yards per pass attempt as a result. The loss of Ryan Shazier really hurt the defense, but the recent news that Shazier has regained some feeling in his legs was good news during Pittsburgh's downtime. The Steelers, like a lot of teams that excelled against the pass, were suspect against the run though, so we'll have to see if Leonard Fournette and the Jaguars' ground game can get going, as that will be the key to this game. Since his Week 9 return, Fournette has 3.2 yards per carry, and that isn't going to cut it, and putting the game on Blake Bortles' shoulders is not a great idea either. It is hard to take a team favored by more than a touchdown in a game with a low total that appears to be moving down. But after last week's offensive showing for Jacksonville, it's easy to see why the market is skeptical of its ability to put up points. The Steelers' defense gets all the accolades for this season, but the offense really got better in the second half of the year. The worry here, though, is how slowly the Steelers start with effectively 3 weeks off from game conditions, and also with the health of Antonio Brown. With all the factors considered, we'll take the Pittsburgh Steelers at -7.